Peace, fathers. This is Ogun back at you once again, Black Fathers Academy, and the topic that I had for today is displaying respect and functionality for the other child's or children's parent or parents, right? So basically, what I'm saying is, if you're single, you're not necessarily if you're single, but if you are no longer with your child or children's parent, um, understanding the importance of displaying functionality and respect. And I understand that that could be a very soft spot for a lot of us, depending on our experiences that we've had with this sister and things like that. And I want to bring it home to understand that our job, for one, as parents, is to rear functional adults, right? To rear functional adults. And we are part of their socialization process, the way in which how we behave, how we respond to things. And some of the greatest lessons that they're going to learn observing us is how we deal with the other parent. And it goes both ways. But our responsibility is primarily with ourselves, not with the other parent. The main responsibility of how we conduct ourselves, how we engage, how we interact, what we bring to the table, that's on us. So we have to always remain in that empowered mind frame that we control what we do, not what somebody else do. It's the same thing with life. Other people should not dictate the way in which how we behave day to day on a consistent basis. We must have an inner resolve that is committed to having a certain peace about ourselves, a certain clarity, and a certain way in which how we move, which is why one of the pillars of the Black Fathers Academy is being grounded. Those one of the things that we need. We need spiritual sustenance. We need to have emotional development. We need to be able to have character. And so all of these things are not just traits for just being a parent per se. It's just being a great quality human being. But understanding the importance of functionality. And what I mean by being functional is communicating, not only communicating, but being an advocate for things having a smooth flow, right? Even when you encounter resistance or something that is unfavorable or unpleasant, right? Being functional is about being someone that is level headed. You're listening. You practice good listening skills. You look for solutions to be able to make things work, regardless of what other people are doing. That's what you do. You focus on these things, right? And as your children mature and develop, they will understand that about you. And possibly they will have that characteristic about themselves or that character trait within themselves to be a problem solver, to remain level headed, to be good on communication, understanding how to ask good questions so that you're able to understand better what you're dealing with. Because that's another thing about being functional is being a very understanding person, and the difficulties of life that could be manifested in people's behaviors and different people's ways of being can be very conflicting to our ability to understand. And that can take time. That can really take time. And some of us as fathers have to be honest and to admit that in the dynamic, we are dysfunctional. We are. Some of us are dysfunctional. And we need to be able to look at that dysfunction and be able to understand that. And I believe that if you deem yourself to be dysfunctional, you should immediately go about seeking help. And there's nothing wrong with seeking help. All of us need help at different stages of our life. And help can look like joining a brotherhood. I'm gonna have a separate video on the importance of having some type of brotherhood or manhood circle that you're reporting to as a father, that helps for your maturity, your development, your emotional stability, and things like that. Um, Therapy. Therapy is very, very. It's not valued the way in which how it should be, in my opinion, in the black community, especially among black men, especially among black men who might look at seeking therapy as a weakness, but also engaging ourselves in other activities that allow us to uncover things that are going on inside of us and reveal those things to us, and also having a process by which we learn how to respond different to different stimuli, things that might set us off and things like that. And that's going to be very, very important because a lot of us, or a lot of destruction, has been done to children, not even primarily by what they experience in the world yet. It's the bickering, the beefing, the back and forth between mother and father. And I know from some conversations that I've had with certain fathers, they feel justified to behave a certain way because the children's mother behave a certain way. And basically, what you're saying is that I'm controlled by this individual, so I have to respond this way because they said this means I need to say that. And that thinking, that thought process needs to stop. If it is not about truly getting into a solution, putting the egos aside, it's just going to get worse. And even if the children's mother is part of the problem, that does not mean that you cannot change and be part of the solution. So even if you have the other parent that's not willing to work with you, they're making things difficult and things like that, you now have to invest time to be a solution, even if they don't. And understand that you're not going to always have things your way as a father. Certain things that you think your children should be involved in or should not be involved in, especially if the children do not live with you, you're not going to always have your way. That's a given. Um, as long as it's not to the detriment of the child, as far as their safety, as long as that is not something that is being jeopardized or threatened, then I think we have to really learn how to really let certain things go, because we got to keep the larger picture. We got to keep the larger picture in mind. And so the larger picture is raising a stable, functional adult primarily, right? But on the way there are going to be a lot of things that's happening, a lot of things that's happening. And sometimes we got to look at certain bickers, beefs, disagreements, and things like that and be like, is all of this really worth it? You know, does this really affect the overall outcome of what I'm trying to develop? And we all should have a plan for our children as far as what we're trying to do. We should all have a plan that we're actually working on. And if we're not working on it consistently, we start working on that consistently to be able to assess, you know, the outcomes. Are we on track? You know, and so I use something very basic as being a functional, stable child as being a goal. No, functional, stable adult to be a goal. But if you yourself as a man is not functional and is not stable, it's going to be very impossible for you to impart that into your child. Maybe someone else can in the world. But why leave that up to chance when you can be a representative of functionality and respect? And a lot of that has to go with dealing with the ego, dealing with pride. Some of us, like I say, when we hear certain things, we feel like we got to make certain things known. We got to nip certain things in the bud. And there are ways about being assertive, but there's also ways of knowing how to allow certain things to play out, right? And some of us get the type of energy that we get from our children's mother because of the way how we have behaved, whether that's now or in the past, right? Where they already look for combat, and it doesn't necessarily have to be physical combat, but they already know it's going to be something dealing with some of us. So they're already wired a certain way, and you're already wired a certain way. And it's a recipe for disaster. And some people will just spend years like that, and they will never better themselves. Some of us, we want to offer our ideas on how the other parent could be a better person when we're not taking that advice. Because when you are a better person for you, you are a better person regardless of what other people do. So meaning, if the other person decides to keep sinking, you're going to decide to keep rising. But if you have the mindset where if she keep doing this, I'm gonna keep doing it. It's basically saying that if this person decides to sink, I'm just going to sink with them because I'm justified to sink now, and that makes no sense, in terms of like real development. So the importance of functionality and respect, it gives a window for the child of clarity of a way that they can be able to live a life where they're minimizing their stress, where they are minimizing conflicts and problems with people, because they are learning other modalities of addressing those things. Rather than being argumentative, they can ask good questions. So prime example, let's say for instance you're dealing with an argumentative person, right? I'm not saying there's never a time in life to argue with someone, right? Because I do believe in the yin and the yang concept, but I think we have to be very thorough about when we implore these different things, right? And those things should not be a constant way of being. Every time somebody makes us upset should not be a time that we argue. If we are doing that, that's a sign of dysfunction, right? Yelling is every time somebody make us upset or set us off or make us feel a certain way, we just flying off. That's dysfunction, and that's a lack of control. It's a lack of self-control. So if we could be that window for them in this stressful world, in this world where they are being informed about how to be, and for the most part in this society based on Eurocentric values and things like that, which does not work in the best interest of us as African people here in the United States, right? We are doing a disservice to them when we're not showing them a clean water to drink. And the best way that we're going to show them is being that example. And that is very, very difficult, is when you are the example. I believe that we can discipline and work on ourselves enough that we become one of our children's role models, right? Some of us are not our children's role models because we have not dedicated enough attention and honesty with ourselves to do that inner work on ourselves. And I believe that we can be a model representation for them of, I've learned how to communicate from my father. I've learned how to be vulnerable by my father. I've learned how to be more understanding and patient with people through my father. Not saying you're going to possess all of those different traits, but the goal is for you to have an appreciation of them and to start displaying them, because those are skills. Those are human skills that we need in order to have a functional society. And we have to be a representation of functionality. We have to be. That's one, in my opinion, one of my greatest gifts that I could give to my children. Right? Because without being, because being functional is having a sense of control over yourself. So, in order for you to excel in anything in life, if you are functional and you have control over your emotions, your being, and how you deal with people, you can further excel in anything that you put your mind into because you have that spiritual foundation. And so that is the importance of it, is that it provides a spiritual foundation to be able to engage with life, especially when life gets difficult. And showing that respect and that honor in the process between you and the child's mother, even if y'all don't get along well. And I understand it could become very conflictual just on the basis that y'all might have had a rugged past, a real tough past. Another thing we're going to address is because some past that we have with our children's parent are very complicated. Some brothers are still having sexual relations with their children's mother and things like that, but they're not still having a relationship, and so that's still some lack of clarity. There are some things that have happened in the relationships that were never properly assessed, addressed, redressed, any of that, right? So we have to look at all of these different things. We got to look at the things that hurt functionality. We're gonna have to dig into that, and we're gonna go into that a little bit later on another talk. But for this talk, is that it's important that you remain functional regardless of the behavior of the other parent. You have to represent that. You have to learn how to exercise your ability to show that discipline, because this is a gift, this is a legacy of something that you're leaving for your child. That's something that you're leaving for them. And when you're not, you're possibly setting them up for a life of pain, right? Because a lot of times children take their models of relationships by what they see from their parents, whether their parents are together or not. Usually when girls are not properly loved and adored and treated a certain way by their fathers, when they go engage with other men, who are they looking for all over again? They're looking for their father in their man in another man. And you don't want that. You don't want that. You want your daughter to be able to look for you with you, not through another man. If she go to another man, she's coming with a certain set of principles, understandings, and a foundation that you gave her. And she's not looking for a certain validation that she never received from a father. It's a certain validation that a father gives his daughter. It's a certain validation that a father gives his son. But it also, too, for sons who don't always have the best relationships with their mother. They're looking for their mother in other relationships. Or if they've been in a situation where they've been pacified by their mother, they're expecting to be pacified by a woman that they meet. In those behavioral traits, looking for your father in another man, looking for your mother through another woman, in terms of pacification, if that was experienced, those things are dysfunctional. So we want to be able to provide a spiritual foundation that helps to sustain them in a healthy way, not something that drains them and they just go through the constant back and forth turmoil and things like that most people do. We can choose peace and we can reflect it, and we can be that beacon of light for our children. And always remember, how other people behave should not be have a bearing on ultimately how we choose to behave on a consistent basis. Peace.